Drop it on the random.
What up, y'all? Welcome to my top 5 of the month of November 2018. This is my top 5 albums, mixtapes, whatever it may be that is just in my rotation, what I'm currently listening to, whether it's at the gym, whether it's, ride to and from work, whatever it may be, man. If you don't know, you can check out my previous version for October, and maybe there'll be some repeats, maybe there won't. Let's get into it. First up, LMA, still bumping that album. I like it a lot. Obviously, if you watch my October 2018 top 5, but I think what I like about it, what I can articulate a little bit more now, is the fact that the production has a old school feel as far as 80s and 90s. Some sounds, not necessarily production that sounds like it comes from the 80s or 90s in particular, but just certain sounds in there that are more familiar to us from those eras, because there were certain techniques and things that they used back then that they overused back then that kind of gave like the 80s and the 90s signature sounds. And I feel like some of those signature sounds exist in this LMA album. I feel like the subject matter is R&B, but I feel like, it works. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you could be saying the same thing as a million other R&B artists, but the way you're saying it, how passionate you are about it, and the production, and your level of singing. So I still like it, still bumping it, LMA. Next up, Black Thought, Stream of Thought, Volume 2. This one is entirely produced by Salaam Remi. Ninth Wonder did Volume 1. Volume 2 was Salaam Remi. I gotta say, I was not excited about this at all. Mainly because of Salaam Remi. I'm not the biggest Salaam Remi fan. But I think this works, and I think it works with Black Thought. I didn't think his production would work with Black Thought, but what was chosen there's some funky stuff there. There's some, some slowed down, not really low tempo, but maybe mid-tempo joints. I didn't think it would work with Black Thought, but it does. I think what works more than anything for me as a listener is how much it complements Volume 1, because it's not really the same, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's what I enjoy about it. So since it dropped, man, I've been listening to it big time. Another new joint to my top 5 rotation, Benny the Butcher, Tana Talk 3. Benny the Butcher and Conway are my favorite MCs out of the Griselda record label. I just like the way them dudes put the words together when they rhyme. You know what I'm saying? Of course, it's boom bap. Of course, it's mostly loops. But I really like Benny the Butcher. You know what I'm saying? He makes me listen to what he has to say. And some rappers who could be so rapidy rap that you zone out, because everything starts to sound the same. There's no variation. There's no real difference in the inflection in their voice. It's just they kind of approach it the same way, which isn't always a bad thing. There's a lot of rappers who are like that. I think Guru is like that. Not just monotone in voice, but in flow and in the way he said certain things. But I think sometimes subject matter, having a variation in your subject matter helps. And I feel like Benny the Butcher has a really dope project. If you never heard of dude, you need to check him out. It's really like fulfilling that void, that boom bap void. Well, Griselda period is doing that. So check it out, man. Benny the Butcher, Tana Talk 3. It's a lot of hip hop this month. I'm just to let you know. It's Master Ace and Marco Polo. It's called A Brooklyn Story. It's an album I didn't really expect to like as much as I do, to be honest. And it's not because I'm from Brooklyn. That's the last thing. I mean, Master Ace has always been from Brooklyn. Why should I get that excited because it's from Brooklyn? But what I like about it is I like Masta Ace's lyrics. Like, Masta Ace is always spoke from the heart when he raps. You know what I'm saying? You really feel like you get to know him when Masta Ace is rhyming. You get to know how he feels and his thoughts. Sure, everybody does that, but I feel like Masta Ace has a knack for delivering his content in a way that it feels like he's having a direct conversation with you, regardless of what it's about. Obviously, it's a one-way conversation, but if you can relate to what he's talking about, then it makes it even doper. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I kind of feel like. I feel like the production fits the songs well. It's just a really good project. The only thing I don't really like about it, and I skip them all the time, is the skits. For one, there's too many of them. I understand it's a story. Sounds like it's the story of Marco Polo moving to Brooklyn. That's cool. What I don't like about it is the fact that it sounds like who's ever reading it, and it could be his family members, because it's supposed to be about his family members and him moving to New York and blah, blah, blah. They sound like they're reading lines. Okay, son, be careful out there. That's how it sounds. So I think either you go and get actors and pay them to sound like your parents, or maybe you just tell you ask your father to shoot from the hip. Hey, Dad, how'd you feel when I was moving to Brooklyn? Let him tell it his way. You know what I'm saying? Instead of the, okay, son, don't worry, you should be fine in Brooklyn. It's like a Dolomite movie, you know what I'm saying? Like, it reads the lines like that. So that's the only thing I dislike about it. Besides that, the music is on point. So definitely worth your time, in my opinion. And the last album that found its way into my top 5 heavy rotation is Meek Mill's Championships. Why do I like this album enough to put it in my heavy rotation? It's easy. I've liked the last 2 Meek Mill albums a lot, and this one is no different. The only thing I would say I don't like about it is it's 19 songs. Not very long songs, but still 19 tracks. But nevertheless, I feel like it's a dope album. A lot of variation in flows and production and guest appearances. Just a very dope album. And, it's not like Meek came out of jail and just made a conscious record, but he does talk about incarceration. He does talk about the ghetto. There was a point in time where Meek Mill, I felt like I liked him, but he really only would describe as Rolly the majority of the time. That would just be, he would just describe jewelry and clothes and cars, and that would be it. And I feel like with this album, he is way more balanced in that way, where I don't know if I heard him do that this time around. I can't remember. But what does stick out to me is the more conscious material regarding incarceration and the ghetto and stuff like that. And, I dig it, because this is, honestly, unfortunately, he had to go to jail, but artists have to progress. I mean, they do. They progress over time as people. So in your music, it should be reflected at least somewhat. Now, you can still have the same principles. You don't have to change who you are. But there has to be something more to you, at least visible in your music in one way or another. You know what I'm saying? And some cats are capable of doing that. Some cats are afraid to do that because they feel like their fan base isn't going to dig it. And some cats just do it and don't care who likes it or don't, because that's how they feel. And I'm glad Meek Mill was able to really come back and make an album like this. That's going to do it for me. You can follow me on social media at Vegas World INC. That's Twitter or Instagram. Also, subscribe to the B-Roll Network. What's in your top 5 rotation for the month of November? Obviously, the month of December is another one, but I'm going to have my top 5 of the year coming up on my other podcast that's also on this channel called That Time in Hip Hop. Stay tuned for that. But subscribe, hit that like button, and share with people enjoy this kind of content. Peace.
Drop it on the random.